There are moments on the road that if you tell them, others will think you are exaggerating. But America in the early 1970s witnessed such a story, and it began with a wood-trimmed station wagon, children chattering in the back seat, and a calm mother waiting for the green light. Beside her was a confident Corvette driver, his hand tapping the steering wheel as if he had already seen victory ahead of him. Then the light turned green, and the unexpected happened. That wagon, weighing tons, shot forward like a beast awakened, leaving the Corvette in a thin trail of stunned exhaust. That moment was not a legend, nor was it an embellished tale. It was the truth about a strange machine called the 1972 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser 455, a modest family car that carried the heart of a predator. Today, we will open the door back to that era, where a wagon could change everything people believed about speed. The story of the Vista Cruiser actually did not begin in 1972, but nearly a decade earlier, on February 4, 1964, when Oldsmobile made a decision that many people in the company at that time considered crazy. The entire industry agreed that a station wagon, proper for the American family, had to be built on a full-size platform. The bigger, the better. But Oldsmobile chose a different path, moving its main wagon model down to the A-body mid-size platform, shared with the Cutlass and F-85. Why do that? Because they saw a gap that others overlooked. A smaller platform was not only lighter and more agile, but it also opened the possibility of creating a wagon that was moderately sized, yet still wide enough for 8 passengers. The 120-inch wheelbase placed the Vista Cruiser at the exact golden point between compact and full size, something Detroit had not thought of at the time. And one detail that made the Vista Cruiser impossible to mistake was certainly the panoramic glass roof, a design so bold that even today it feels unbelievable that it once appeared on a family car. Oldsmobile did not just place a few small windows in the roof. They built an entire fixed skylight system stretching directly above the second row of seats. The large glass panels not only captured sunlight, but turned the entire cabin into a miniature atrium. From inside the car, looking up, the sky seemed to expand with every mile traveled, a feeling that even many modern SUVs cannot recreate. To accommodate that strip of glass, the roof was raised significantly, creating a silhouette completely different from any wagon of its era. And they went even further, adding additional glass sections along both sides of the rear cargo area, turning the car into a true mobile greenhouse. Of course, all that sunlight in the summer could become a bit too much, so Oldsmobile prepared a set of individual sunshades for each glass panel, a small detail that reflected the meticulousness of the 1960s. When stepping inside the Vista Cruiser, although built on a mid-size platform, this wagon offered a space that many full-size models had to respect. The second row was designed as a split bench that could slide and fold forward with a light motion, and that movement opened the way to the third row, an area children always considered their own fortress on long trips. When 8 passengers were needed, the Vista Cruiser responded instantly. But when all the seats were folded flat, the car transformed into a cargo area up to 100 feet, enough to swallow everything from camping gear, family suitcases, to bulky items that today would require a pickup truck. For families in the early 1970s, this flexibility was incredibly important. The exterior could be fitted with wood grain panels along the sides, giving the Vista Cruiser the classic station wagon look of the era. But even without the wood, the front end still projected a muscular appearance. Large vents on the hood dominated the design, hinting at the potential power underneath. They were not just decorative, they were functional details designed to help cool the massive engine that some buyers would choose. Across its production run from 1964 to 1977, the Vista Cruiser went through 3 different generations, each representing the pulse of America at that moment. The first generation laid the foundation with its unique styling and unprecedented panoramic roof. The second generation, from 1968 to 1972, was the golden era, where the Vista Cruiser achieved the perfect balance of design, space, and power. Most customers ordered their Vista Cruiser with the standard 350 cubic inch V8. It was an engine fully strong enough to carry the entire family, efficient enough for long trips, and most importantly, fitting the budget of the middle class. However, Oldsmobile offered an optional engine that transformed the Vista Cruiser from a family hauler into an entirely different kind of machine. The Rocket 455 block was one of the largest V8 engines ever installed in any Detroit-built wagon. Not large in a symbolic sense, but mechanically large. 455 cubic inches, equivalent to 7.5 liters, with a bore of 4.126 inches and a stroke of 4.25 inches. Oldsmobile had been building the Rocket V8 family since 1949, but by the early 1970s, the 455 had reached a remarkable level of maturity. This engine used an iron block and iron heads, heavy but nearly indestructible. The special trait of the 455 did not lie in its horsepower numbers, but in its wedge head design, with valves set at only 6 degrees. It may sound technical, but that very architecture created powerful intake and exhaust flow at low and mid RPM, exactly where a wagon weighing more than 4,000 pounds truly needed its strength. No need to push the tachometer needle high. Just a light touch of the throttle and torque would surge in like a wave. However, the 455 was not perfect. Engines built for drag racing often encountered issues with the webbing and with main bearing caps that used only 2 bolts, not rigid enough when pushed to extreme horsepower levels. But on the street, where most Vista Cruisers lived, the 455 proved extraordinarily durable. Many owners claimed they drove more than 100,000 miles with only basic maintenance. And if one number explains why the Vista Cruiser 455 could embarrass a Corvette at a stoplight, it is not horsepower. It is 370 pound-feet of torque. But even that number cannot fully describe the real sensation. What turned this wagon into a secret predator was the way the 455 delivered torque. Instant, full, and pouring down to the wheels like a rising tide. Just a very light tap of the gas, and the entire car, weighing more than 2 tons, would immediately lean back as if someone were pulling the body with an invisible rope. That is the low-end grunt, the signature strength only large displacement engines of the classic era could create. In a world where turbochargers were not yet common and electronics played no major role, the torque of the 455 arrived like a natural reflex, powerful, raw, and unmistakable. The year 1972 marked several significant changes in the automotive industry. It was the year automakers were forced to switch from SAE gross to SAE net for measuring horsepower and torque. It may sound like a numbers game, but it made many engines appear mysteriously weaker. Under the old standard, engines were tested on a stand. No cooling fan, no alternator, no exhaust, and all conditions perfectly optimized. But SAE net measured strength with the engine installed in the car, with full accessories, real exhaust, and real load. As a result, the new numbers dropped sharply. The 1972 Vista Cruiser 455 was not spared from this storm. On paper, output fell to just 250 to 270 horsepower, low enough that many today mistakenly think this wagon was weak. But reality tells a different story. Real-world runs still recorded the Vista Cruiser completing the quarter mile in about 14.7 seconds at 94 miles per hour, a performance that made many sports cars of the era nervous. Despite possessing immense strength from the 455, the Vista Cruiser was not a model Oldsmobile promoted as a performance machine. On the contrary, it was paired with a 3-speed turbo-hydromatic transmission, a smooth, durable automatic, perfectly suited for carrying the whole family on long trips. No manual transmission option, no performance badges, no indication whatsoever that this wagon could humiliate sports car drivers, and it was precisely this pretending to be ordinary nature that created the Vista Cruiser's legendary sleeper character. On the outside, it could wear wood grain panels, roof racks, gentle chrome, looking exactly like the transportation of a typical American family. But the moment the driver pressed the throttle, that mild-mannered wagon instantly transformed into a predator. There is something deeply satisfying about defeating a flashy sports car in a race while driving what looks like your mom's grocery hauler. The Vista Cruiser was already special, but there were versions so rare that even seasoned car enthusiasts had only heard of them, not seen them in person. The first must be the Vista Cruiser Hearst models used as support vehicles at the Indianapolis 500. These were not mass-produced cars, but machines refined by Hearst Performance, the famous company known for its shifter kits. They used the 455 engine, but came with W30 components, including a hotter camshaft, freer-flowing intake paths, and power calibration optimized for high-speed operation. These wagons did more than tow equipment and personnel around the racetrack. They demonstrated that the Vista Cruiser platform was strong enough to function perfectly in an environment typically reserved for performance cars. Another variant was the Vista Cruiser 442 SDW. Originally, 442 was Oldsmobile's pure muscle car badge, meaning 4-barrel carburetor, 4-speed transmission, dual exhaust. By 1972, the meaning had changed, but the 442 name still carried enough prestige to command respect. Its appearance on a station wagon made anyone stop and stare for a few moments, a family hauler wearing the uniform of Oldsmobile's performance lineage. By 1972, its meaning had shifted, but the 442 badge still held significant weight among performance enthusiasts. Seeing that emblem on a station wagon was almost unsettling, yet it perfectly expressed what Oldsmobile was trying to achieve. It held special meaning for the Vista Cruiser 455 because 1972 was the final year this engine was offered in the wagon. New emissions regulations forced manufacturers to lower compression, alter combustion chamber design, and revise ignition timing. Insurance companies saw young drivers buying muscle cars and raised premiums so high that they practically punished anyone wanting a powerful vehicle. And then the final blow came from outside the industry, the 1973 oil crisis, which sent fuel prices soaring and pushed buyers towards smaller, more efficient cars. In that environment, the idea of a 6- or 7-passenger wagon with a 7.5-liter engine suddenly became something no one dared to imagine. Not because the Vista Cruiser 455 was not good, but because its era had ended. In 1972, the combination of a wagon and a giant V8 disappeared from the lineup, and the Vista Cruiser 455 became a witness to the moment Detroit was forced to step away from the dream of infinite power they once chased. If the technical numbers built the Vista Cruiser 455's reputation in the automotive world, then popular culture was where this wagon achieved true legendary status. The interesting part is that the Vista Cruiser did not gain fame from a dramatic racing scene or a cinematic action moment. It became famous simply by being in the right place at the right time in a television show called That 70s Show in the series. The 1969 Vista Cruiser in Aztec gold, owned by the Foreman family, was not just transportation. It was almost a main character, a mobile clubhouse where the group of friends talked, laughed, explored the world, and occasionally got into trouble. For millions of viewers, the Vista Cruiser evoked memories of youth, late-night hangouts, and the sense of freedom that only classic American wagons could offer. Its influence grew so widely that when the show ended, the actual filming car was sold for just $500, and the buyer was actor Wilmer Valderrama himself. An unbelievable price for a television icon, but it reflected the reality of that time. The Vista Cruiser still sat outside the collector spotlight. Driving a Vista Cruiser 455 today is unlike any experience you can find in a modern car. The moment you place your hands on the wide steering wheel, you feel the slow, mechanical, and real sensation that only vintage cars can give. The wheel has plenty of play, the feedback is delayed, and the car seems to take an extra beat before responding to the driver's command. The brakes demand substantial foot pressure, and the suspension is as soft as a living room sofa from the 1970s. Every ripple in the road makes the body sway like a boat on water. But all of that disappears the moment you press the throttle. The 455 rocket does not bark sharply like a modern performance engine. It rumbles deep, thick, and heavy, like the sound of a metal heart waking up. And then the torque pulls the body forward with such force that it makes you smile. Not because of speed, but because of personality. Looking back at the Vista Cruiser 455, what makes it special is not just the specifications or its straight-line achievements. What is more memorable is the way it challenged every convention of its era. A 6- or 7-passenger wagon, wearing wood grain and a panoramic roof, should have been nothing more than a family camping vehicle. Yet with a single engine option, it became a vivid example of the philosophy, "If the customer wants it, we will build it," a motto Detroit once lived by. The Vista Cruiser 455 proved that practicality and performance did not have to exclude each other. A car could be spacious, useful, and family-friendly, and still powerful enough to create stories worth retelling decades later. It also reflected a time when automotive engineers were given nearly absolute creative freedom. No market research, no layered marketing strategy, just passion and technical capability. Today, the Vista Cruiser is not the most expensive or the rarest collectible, but it possesses something money cannot buy: personality. A personality that is honest, unusual, and full of contradictions. The very qualities that made it one of the most memorable sleepers America ever saw in the 1970s. If you have ever sat behind the wheel of a classic wagon, or simply grew up in a time when family trips began with the heavy sound of a closing door and the smell of sun-warmed vinyl, then the Vista Cruiser 455 has surely stirred something familiar within you. So if you have a story, a memory, or a moment connected to classic wagons, feel free to share it in the comments. Every line of your recollection will help bring these forgotten machines back to life once more. And if you love stories about machines that seem ordinary but hide a powerful soul within, do not forget to hit subscribe. The journey to explore America's strange and legendary creations is still long, and many names are waiting to be awakened. See you next time.